So hi guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to discuss a topic from cell biology, that is biology of aging. What do you understand by aging? Aging is mean growth of the entire body, the organs, tissues, cells. So we also called aging as cell aging, right? So what is cell aging? It is the gradual, as it goes on and on with time, and cumulative decline in the cellular function and viability, the tendency to remain alive due to accumulated damage or internal stress, right? So now we'll talk about its consequences. What are the consequences, or you can say the results of cellular aging, right? It leads to reduced reduced repair of what? DNA, right? DNA repair gets reduced. Then we have impaired metabolism. Obviously, if the cell is moving towards its death phase, how can it work properly? So it hinders the metabolic processes, right? And the eventual growth arrest, which means senescence, or you can say death, right? Obviously, gradually, if the cell is growing, it will lead to its death, right? So there are various factors which leads to this factors, or you can say the key mechanisms leading to aging. These are only referred to as the biology of aging. First one is telomere shortening, right? You know what is telomere? Suppose this is a chromosome, so the end point, right? There are a protective cap like structure at the end of the chromosome. This is referred to as the telomere, right? So as the chromosome divides, keeps on dividing, the telomere gets shortened, right? So the protective caps or the telomeres shorten with each cell division, signaling to stop the cell signaling the cell to stop dividing, okay. The telomere only sends the message or the signal to the cells that now it is the time that it has to stop dividing. Obviously, otherwise it may lead to multiple growth, and then it might lead to tumor formation of or cancer, right? So it is also called as the replicative senescence, right? Senescence. Then we have DNA damage. Obviously, if the DNA gets damaged, the cell might not function properly and it might grow and may die later on. Accumulation of errors and breakdowns in the DNA structure. Of errors and breaks in DNA. The source may be internal, as the metabolism. Sometimes the metabolism is so increased that it might lead to damaged DNA, or the source can also be external, that is UV rays, right? Then we have mitochondrial dysfunction. Mitochondrial dysfunction, how it is responsible? We all know that mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Dysfunction. So obviously, if there is no power supply, can your body work? Let's take the example of your phone. If the phone gets shut off, then if there is no power supply, does your phone work properly? No. Same is with the body. Reduced energy production and increased production of harmful reactive oxygen species. ROS. Obviously, if the mitochondria is not working properly, so someone has to provide oxygen to the body for its functioning, right? So production of harmful reactive oxygen species might happen, which can also lead to cell aging. Then we have impaired autophagy. What is autophagy? As the name suggests, auto means self, phagy means to eat something. Here the cell eats its own waste by itself in order to prevent its disruption, right? If we say na, my kachra, jiska kachra uski जिम्मेदारी, that is what the cell obeys. It has to remove its waste on its own. So this cellular ability to clear its own waste, clear the damaged organelles or other waste, damaged organelles and waste decreases. Obviously अगर एक जगह से वेस्ट रिमूव नहीं होगा तो इट माइट लीड टू बिल्डअप्स, और सेल में बिल्डअप होगा तो परेशान हो गई. Then we have protein homeostasis issue. I hope you might be knowing homeostasis, what it is. Homeostasis issues. Homeostasis occurs in cell, which leads to its growth, development, differentiation, etc. When we are a child, we all know that it occurs in first in our yolk sac, then in our liver, then spleen, right? And then in the bone marrows of long bones, sort of, right? So what is protein homeostasis issue? Failure to maintain the protein proper structure. Maintain proper protein folding and function. We all know what is a protein. Protein is a chain of amino acids. They differ from each other on the basis of their composition and their process and the way of their folding. They have different folding types. Okay, so what happens in protein homeostasis issue? That the protein folding is improper, leading to clumping of proteins, and if the proteins have been clumped, they might not function properly and thus leading to cell aging. Then we have epigenetic alterations. What is epigenetic? Gene expression, right? Related to gene expression. Alteration, everybody know change. So change in gene expression patterns. Gene expression patterns which disrupt the normal cellular process. Obviously, if a gene is tend to code for a protein or is tend to maintain the stability of the cell, and if it's not working properly, so the cell procedures might be disrupted, and thus it might lead to aging. Okay, then we have genomic instability was also there. Genomic instability. Earlier we have discussed this point that if mitochondrial dysfunction is there, then harmful reactive oxygen species production increases. So when this increase in ROS, reactive oxygen species, results in DNA replication errors. Okay, also increases, leading to genomic instability. Okay, then we have stem cell exhaustion. You all might be knowing what is stem cells. The cell which give rise to various different cells in the body. Okay, so what this indicates that the stem cells have exhausted means they have lost their potential to regrow and regenerate, right? So tissue regeneration potential decreases. Also there is another point, that is thymic regression. Thymic, you all know, related to the immune system cells like B cells, competent T cells, naive T cells. So thymic regression leads to decrease in competent and naive T cell production decreases, right? Okay, these were the processes of that lead to cellular aging. So what happens during aging? What happens? First is cellular senescence. Cell enters into a state of growth arrest, that is irreversible. And these cells, when entered into growth arrest, obviously if it's not functioning, it is not growing, so it will result into something drastic. So it releases inflammatory signals like SASP, right, which affects the surrounding tissues. Thus, as we grow old or when we see our grandparents, you might have noticed that sometimes we notice swelling and inflammation on their face, right? Then we see loss of function. It is so clear with its name, loss of function, that cell loses its ability to repair, replicate, and perform various tasks which it is tend to or it is specialized to perform. Then we have increased damage. Increased susceptibility to oxidative stress, right? Susceptibility means capability to easily attract the oxidative stress. Obviously, if the mitochondria is not functioning properly, the oxygen production is not proper, then it might lead body to easily gain the ability to have oxidative stress, and various forms of damage also can be there. Other forms of damage. Again, we can once recall the major points. Right. First, what is cellular aging? It is the gradual cumulative decline in cellular function and viability. What are the results? Reduced repair, impaired metabolism, growth arrest, senescence, and death. Right? Then we have what are the factors or the key mechanisms? First is telomere shortening. Then we have DNA damage, mitochondrial dysfunction, impaired autophagy, protein homeostasis issue. Then we have epigenetic alterations, genomic instability, stem cells exhaustion, thymic regression. What are the results? Here is or the consequences, you can say: cellular senescence, loss of function, and increased damage to the body and cells. I hope the topic might be clear to you. If you have any doubt, please drop down in the comment section. Thank you.